All right, guys, what is up? Welcome in GC Live. Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark, rolling through National Signing Day. Chris, we holding up, man. We hanging in.
We're hanging in, man.
Pretty
hanging
busy day, man. Pretty busy day.
Very busy day. I got the hat on. The hat's dirty on the front, so it's turned backwards because I have not showered today. We've got a headache going on.
We both look like crap. Let's just be honest. We look freaking terrible.
Yes, we do. Yeah, no, I mean, some people watch the audio or listen to the audio only version. If you're on the video stream, I guess we need to apologize, but I think we are going to play some. We're going to play some huddle clips, Wes. So like maybe that'll distract people from our look right now.
Yeah, I need more lights in here, dude. Like the natural light in the winter is like I feel like we're in Asheville right now. Like it's just gray outside. I got this ring light just isn't doing anything. Anyway, we're going to talk National Signing Day. But first, let me tell you about our guy, Clint Hammond, CMG Home Loans. Clint was texting me yesterday, Chris. What do you think Lenoris is going to do? Who's the OC going to be? Point being, Clint is one of you. He's one of you guys. ClintHammond.com, 803-422-6797. NMLS number 71597. They make us say that legally. But hit up Clint if you're in the market for a new home. If you're new on the show, we tell people every single show. He's our presenting sponsor. We know not everybody's buying a house right now. All we ask is that if you are in the market for a house at some point, you're probably going to need a mortgage. Let Clint at least have the opportunity to earn your business. And by calling him, you can see if that is a possibility for you. 803-422-6797.
And we'll tell everybody about the folks at Ferry Chevrolet. Similar to a mortgage, Wes. If you're listening, you might not be saying, I need a new vehicle or I need a new used vehicle. But in the event that you do, if you think you might be looking in the near future, you're just kind of in the exploratory phases, go check out Ferry Chevrolet, ferrychevrolet.com, F-A-I-R-E-Y, ferrychevrolet.com, or give them a call at 803-937-4531. They've been around since 1926. Fourth generation dealer Joseph Ferry still leads the great team over there. Been on board with us several months, Wes. Love working with the guys over at Ferry Chevrolet. They're on GamecockCentral.com. If you're on the Insiders Forum, you see the Ferry Chevrolet drive every single week, previewing games. Hope to do that next year again. And then, of course, we tell you about them. Couldn't spit it out here on the program. Again, ferrychevrolet.com. Great inventory of new and used vehicles, conveniently located in Orangeburg off I-26 between Columbia and Charleston. Give them a chance to earn your business if you're looking for a new vehicle.
All right, guys, let's talk signing day. We're going to dive into some guys who committed and signed. And then obviously, very first question here from Will. Let's give a quick rundown on where things are right now. If you're listening or watching this show later, it may be outdated, but at least the breakdowns of the particular players will not be outdated. As of right now, we are live 3:36 p.m. Wednesday, National Signing Day. Chris, all signs are this National Signing Day for South Carolina is going to spill over into day two as some guys are just need more time, frankly, at this point. That can change quickly too, but as of right now, that's where we are. So 14 verbal commitments coming into the day. As of right now, 11 have signed. And then two of those guys, SQL Patterson, wide receiver, I checked on that situation, wanted to sign with his guys, with his teammates. I was told no concerns there. He's a Gamecock. And then Tristan Lewis had already tweeted earlier this week, tagged all the Gamecock accounts. I'm signing on Thursday. That was already the plan. Beamer talked about him today, so sneaking suspicion, South Carolina already has that letter of intent. Probably in the office over there, but no worries there. Tristan Lewis, he's a Gamecock. He'll sign with the Gamecocks. The other guys that were kind of tracking at this point, quite obviously, Landon Duckworth, South Carolina quarterback commit, LSU making a push there. Julian Walker, of course, not on the South Carolina commit list, is on the Michigan commit list, but South Carolina has been pushing there for months. Carson Baker, we thought was someone we would be tracking leading into tomorrow. Chris, I don't even know if we're going to wake up tracking him, to be honest. That one changed very, very quickly. Lots of Texas A&M buzz today. Beamer, I was at the press conference. He essentially, I think he said, we're not signing a high school running back. I think is how he said it. So I don't know. We'll check around, but that one doesn't seem like one we're going to be tracking. Certainly, Landon Duckworth and Julian Walker are two situations that it sounds like we're going to be tracking into Thursday.
Yeah, and Carson Baker had already announced previously, the 4-star running back out of Georgia. We knew going into, even earlier this week that was going to be the plan. And Wes, that one, man, I'm going to take these one at a time. So Carson Baker's had one of the more unpredictable recruitments that I can remember. Just looking back at the whole thing, South Carolina led at one point early in the process. He had multiple different schools throughout the process at the top of his list, whether it was publicly or kind of behind the scenes. Things seem like they might come for full circle after his weekend official visit to South Carolina that he had reserved, took that visit. You come out, Saturday, Sunday after the Clemson game, you're thinking Carson Baker could very well end up in this class. But there were a few different things. Number one, you had Florida where he was committed for a time. He's since backed away from that pledge. He's uncommitted right now. And you knew that they had hired a new coach in John Sumrall. So was he a guy that they were going to try to keep in the class? Would he want to get back in Florida's class if he liked what he heard from John Sumrall? My indications, Wes, are they did want to keep him in the class. Then you've got North Carolina, right, to the point where earlier this week, we were hearing it seems a little bit more like a South Carolina UNC battle. And then lo and behold, earlier today, this morning, got word Texas A&M's coming late, getting in the mix there, I guess you could say, with Carson Baker late last night. And so you're right, they're a school that's carried some buzz. So a predicament that started and progressed throughout with a lot of unpredictability. Really, the thing that's come full circle on that one is that it has been unpredictable. So I think you're right. I mean, you never know. Maybe we get a call or a text here in the next few hours and something shifted again, but it does seem like that one's kind of gone in a different direction now. Julian Walker, a guy where Michigan commit, South Carolina is a school that obviously he's got the family tie. He attends Dutch Fork High School. Came out recently that he was going to be signing on Thursday, needed some extra time. UNC again, Wes, trying to push into the mix late there. They kind of been involved throughout. So I say late, but they've been involved throughout. They're trying to make a big last minute push. And then you got Landon Duckworth as well, a guy that, that one we should probably spend a little bit more time on, Wes. But I think the short version for Landon Duckworth, LSU, once again, they've come in late and trying to make things difficult. I don't have a firm signing time or date even on that one. We're in, of course, a 3-day signing period that began today, but the Gamecocks are in a battle on that one with the LSU Tigers.
Yes, they are. Sorry, y'all. I thought I had myself muted. So if you heard typing, I hate when I listen to other shows and people are typing. So if y'all heard it, I apologize. I thought I had myself muted. Trying to get this posted different places and make sure we're keeping up with everything as well in case something happens while we're here live right now. With Julian Walker, North Carolina situation there too. I was told he spoke basically firsthand with Belichick either last night or today. That maybe made an impression. That's where some of that North Carolina buzz is coming from. Like, obviously that guy, take what happened this year, throw it out. He is still a legend. We'll see if that fades or the only reason I think the UNC stuff, speculating here a little bit, Chris, could be real is I feel like you do sometimes see prospects where they almost, if they're torn between two schools, I've seen a prospect split the difference before and just say, I'm trying to choose between Michigan and South Carolina. Well, maybe there's a compromise here. I'll just go to UNC. And I'm not saying that's going to be the case here, but I have seen that happen before. This one, frankly, guys, I think Julian is legitimately torn and is I don't want to say anything too definitively on a live show because I feel like, much like with all the guys we're talking about right now, it could just change very, very quickly by the time we get into Thursday morning. So shameless plug, come read it on Gamecock Central as well. Come hang out with us. We will have that kind of hour by hour, sometimes minute by minute update. Similar with Duckworth, dude. I feel like when the Wiltfong prediction went in, you saw a lot of the he gone. That's it. He's going to
Hashtag he
LSU.
gone.
He may still be going. He may still go to LSU because here's the thing, man. Lane Kiffin, there's a lot of buzz we know with LSU right now. Lane Kiffin had Duckworth almost committed to him when he was at Ole Miss. So this is not a new coach coming in. And this is not a guy that where it's just, it's LSU. I'm going to commit to a buzzworthy situation. It is more, he has a prior relationship with Lane Kiffin as well. So I think that part of it is a factor. Dude, I went back and read some of the stuff we wrote when Duckworth committed for the second time. A big part of it was Mike Shula building that relationship with Landon Duckworth. So there was a relationship here with Shula. Obviously, he's no longer at South Carolina, and so now you have, it's a different school, but Kiffin getting back involved. It feels like that one has kind of swayed a little bit back and forth, though, even since the news came out that LSU was making this massive push. Even looking at kind of the national writing on this, Wiltfong has been all over this thing. It was, hey, this thing may be heavily trending to LSU. Now I feel like that sliding scale is maybe more a little bit like, I still think LSU, but he hasn't signed with the Tigers yet either. And so I feel like if it was a certainty, we would have already seen the full-on flip. So how does this thing go into the evening? What happens leading into tomorrow is something we're all going to be following along.
Yes, I mean, great points there. And I'd add to that, Wes, that Duckworth already has familiarity with LSU pre-Kiffin too, right? So he's got the Kiffin familiarity from his time at Ole Miss. He's got the LSU familiarity when Brian Kelly was still on staff there. Remember, LSU's already made another push, as did Auburn. Auburn made it close. LSU's already made a push under the previous staff, and there's still some carryover from that staff, right? So makes a lot of sense that they would go ahead and shoot their shot. Tough situation to kind of figure out, Wes. We're certainly working it behind the scenes, but when you see a Steve Wiltfong prediction that kind of comes from nowhere, it does stop you in your tracks, but then you go check and see what happens. Is this thing completely imminent? Is it more of a situation where it's kind of a projection of a direction that it may be going? So are there some valid concerns here with LSU? Yeah, I think so. Again, we're sitting here as a reminder, once again, 3:46 on signing day. If you're listening to this later on the podcast version, maybe something has shaken out one way or another. We're kind of going in real time with what we're hearing here. Are there some concerning things? Yes. Are there also, Wes, some things you hear behind the scenes that make you think this thing could end up being fine and he ends up signing with the Gamecocks? Like, I would not take that scenario off the table totally. I understand in the age of rapid reaction, strong reaction, as soon as we see something, that means it's totally done and there's no going back. I don't think this is quite that. Sometimes that is the situation. This one, I don't think it's quite there. So we'll see. It's certainly a situation that Duckworth and his family are still navigating, and it's a situation that both LSU and South Carolina are still navigating too.
Yep, no doubt. All right, so cool. Let's get into some of the guys that are not only committed but have signed with South Carolina, Chris. And one of the first ones, actually the first one that South Carolina announced today, we actually had him on our show earlier on 107.5, would be Darius Gray. And tell you what, man, while I pull up, for those on the video version, I'm going to pull up some highlights of Darius. What are your thoughts? Beamer talked about him a little bit today too. Just a phenomenal, just thoughtful kid, a dual sport athlete. Beamer talked about how good he is at basketball too. You look at He plays O-line and D-line in high school, Chris. And I'm not talking about just plugging up the middle either. Is out there making plays on the defensive line as well. Obviously, for South Carolina, when they landed Darius Gray, you're talking about a big boy recruiting battle win for them. Everybody in the country is after this kid.
It was 5-star, one of the top interior offensive linemen in the country. I think super versatile, Wes. I think, if in 3 years we hear Darius Gray, South Carolina starting center, not going to be surprised. If you hear he's a starting guard, starting tackle, like I'm not going to be surprised, honestly, anywhere that they may end up slotting him. We even asked him about it earlier. He's not sure. You're going to kind of figure it out. It's actually one of the nowadays so common to enroll early. He's actually not going to enroll until the summer. But nonetheless, I think he's a guy that I would not be surprised if you hear a legitimate possibility of him making some noise in camp next year. South Carolina, I think, does want to get older on the offensive line. I think it's going to be a portal-heavy cycle. But Darius Gray is a guy that I think checks so many of those boxes. His high school coach, to your point about him on the D-line, told me that he's the only guy he's ever coached who was going to college to play offensive line who could play power 4 defensive tackle too if he wanted. And you see that on film. He's making a lot of plays. Basketball player. He's light on his feet. He's got the size. He's extremely intelligent. And I think another one of the things you look at with Gray, West, there's been a lot of conversation about leadership and that gap in leadership between the 2024 team and the 2025 team, wanting to cultivate more leaders both on the roster for next year with returners and then guys that you're adding. Darius Gray, man, future leader. Another thing I would be surprised if he was not a team captain at some point with South Carolina. And I think, guys, someone that fans are going to love for a lot of reasons, but one of them being this cat could have gone about anywhere and watched his team he was committed to go through a really tough season, watched his offensive line coach, his future offensive line coach, and the guy that recruited him had a huge hand in his recruitment, get dismissed, and still never really wavered from that commitment. So a lot of things, to like about Darius Gray.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I think he's already a bit of a fan favorite, and I think that will only grow once Gamecock fans get to see a little bit more of what he's all about. And to go back to the basketball thing, man, give me as many jumbo athletes who are able to just be agile on a basketball court as possible. I remember watching TJ Sanders, and you're going, this guy doesn't just play basketball. He is a phenomenal basketball player. And we see how that translated to the interior of the defensive line. That's almost always a good sign for these guys if they also have the toughness to go out there and play in the trenches as well. And I think safe to say that Darius Gray does. And again, just a big, huge recruiting battle that South Carolina won out to land him. All right, let's kind of go down the list here, guys. Let's go to Javian Currents, a early commit to South Carolina, someone that, Chris, talk about being on the recruiting radar forever. I mean, I feel like we were hearing about this kid for 4 years now. Same with Darius Gray, actually, but Currents committed early, took a couple of other visits, man, but I would say for the most part, stayed locked in with South Carolina, stayed locked in despite Texas getting involved back, I guess that was in the summer, Florida State trying to get involved in the summer, stayed locked in. I'm sure lots of schools reached out when South Carolina's season kind of went down. Locked in with the Gamecocks today, though, and as someone Beamer mentioned here, the it factor with Currents. And I think that's something I've always noticed about this kid. He has always carried himself on the field like he was the baddest dude on the field, has always carried himself like the guy that wanted the spotlight on him on the field and wanted to make the big play. This is the kid who, some people maybe shy away a little bit. If Currents is on the field and the game is on the line, I think he wants the ball trying to go to the guy he's near, because he wants to be the guy to make the big interception or the big hit to get a stop. So I think you called him an alpha That is, I think, the perfect description for Currents there at South Point.
Yes, an alpha type of mentality. We've seen this guy play high school football on the field, Wes. We've seen this guy in camp settings, and he likes to make plays, and he likes to inform the opposition about the play that he just made against them. That is what he really likes to do. So, I mean, a kid that's got great size. I think he's got a good feel for the game. He's kind of one of those football junkies, football lifers. Plays quarterback for South Point at the high school level, and Wes has made a lot of plays for them at that position too. And so, you look at Javian Currents, the first thing that's going to stand out is just that size, right? That length at 6'3", 210, that frame. But he is a true big safety. And Wes actually, I think, has some range. He's a guy that he loves to come up and hit people. That's kind of his MO in the run game. He can certainly come up with his physicality and hit people. But at that size, he's actually more adept in coverage than maybe you would just think just looking at him. He can move around. He's probably not going to be like a 4.3 combine guy one day. He might not be as freaky as one of the biggest freaks we've ever seen in Nicky Manwari, but he has a great frame. He can move. We saw him at camp this spring out there covering some guys, getting some interceptions. And I think, frankly, a guy that can just continue to develop, but has a lot of physical tools.
Well, you look at that safety position, Chris, depending on who comes back and depending on what the young guys look like in terms of development, you're replacing DQ Smith and you're replacing Peyton Williams. So there could be an opportunity if Currents comes in and makes a quick transition for him to go play early at South Carolina. We've seen Torian Gray have success with big safeties. And, this is a guy, I kind of like the long speed here. You know what I'm saying? Like, he is a big kid, but he's a long strider. In that camp, one of those camps you're talking about, there'd be situations where much smaller guys would maybe get off the line, but he just he has closing speed, he has length, he has long arms, and some guys maybe thought they had him beat, and he'd close in and lock it down while the ball is in the air. Definitely some ball skills here too. And again, you talk about maybe someone that can bring a little extra edge to this defense. We talk about South Carolina adding leadership. I think South Carolina adding a little bit of just that kind of I'm better than you, and like you said, I'm going to tell you about it, certainly is something that maybe they've needed a little bit more of lately, and something that I think Currents will certainly bring to the field for South Carolina. All right, let's keep it moving, man. I want to go through a lot of these. Aiden Harris, Weddington High School, 4-star defensive lineman, depending on which service you look at, is a top 20 defensive lineman, interior guy in the country, is as high as number 8. That's what he is on Rivals, the number 77 overall prospect in the class. And, man, you talk about needing to continue to add to that position. We've talked about that. Adding some size, adding some twitch, adding a guy that can be disruptive. That's something Beamer mentioned in the press conference today, is that this is a guy who brings to you those like natural, I guess, traits you're looking for at that 3 technique defensive line spot.
Another guy, Wes, that likes to talk on the field. He's demonstrative on the field, but he certainly backs it up with the amount of plays that he can make. You're right, 3 technique guy. Like, if you look at him, if you see Aiden Harris either on film or if you see him in person, you kind of get the sense of, okay, this is probably not going to ever be a 325 pound defensive tackle, right? But what he is going to be is a guy who can put on more weight, get bigger, get stronger. Talked to his high school coach about him after he committed, Wes, and he said, hey, even if he gets up in the 280 range, something like that, it could be scary because he's someone who's got a lot of natural quickness, a lot of natural twitch, and someone that could be hard for some of these bigger interior offensive linemen who don't move as well to get their hands on. So, a lot of coaches say closer you play the ball, tougher it is to play early. That could be the case here. But from a longer term standpoint, when this guy gets bigger, stronger, continues learning, he's got a lot of upside because of that athleticism he has.
Yeah, and it's a position of need too, man. I certainly think they're going to attack the portal in terms of Beamer talked about this today in terms of adding defensive tackles and guys on the interior, and we'll see. I could also see him being one of those kids, man, that comes in and puts on weight fairly quickly and is just twitchy enough, is athletic enough to go out there and I don't want to say he's going to be like starting as a true freshman, but I just think when you have a guy who has this pass rush juice potentially from the interior, maybe he's a third down pass rush guy early on. Like this is, I mentioned TJ Sanders in a different light earlier, but that kind of, I believe you hear his name brought up a lot with guys. This guy's got some TJ Sanders in him. Part of that is because I think South Carolina is trying to recreate that and re-add that pass rush ability from the interior. And whether it's right off the bat or whether it's down the road a little bit, I think Aiden has that ability and kind of what they're looking for in terms of that. All right, like I said, we're going to try to keep it moving here. Zion Guiles from Carvers Bay. Chris, I know you were there at his announcement when he committed to the Gamecocks a while back. Of course, locks in with South Carolina, signs with them today. And, man, as we go to the film on Zion, this kid is mean on the field. Like, he's just mean. Like, he wants to end you, I feel like, which is a pretty good quality in an offensive lineman.
It is. Super nice kid off the field, super nice. Just absolutely flips a switch when he gets on the field. And, we saw Zion at South Carolina's camp before he had blown up from an offer standpoint, Wes, and he very quickly after that started amassing a whole bunch of Power 4 offers. The first thing that stands out if you see him is just the size, right? And you see a lot of times offensive linemen at the high school level who you look at them and you say, oh, they're big, right? And maybe on film they're pretty good. But and Shane Beamer brought this up today as a general point. He said, I was kind of hoping he would say, Wes, since you were in the crowd, that some of these guys block guys that look like Wes, but he chose to single out Steve Fink. And they called Finker old. Man, tough day for Fink. But anyway.
He said old. He didn't even say older. He said old.
Yeah, as you get older. He said as you get old. It's like, man, roasted. But anyway, sometimes you see those guys and you wonder, well, how does it project? Like, can they move? Well, when you look at Zion, yes, the size stands out, but like he can move. He's mean. He's positionally versatile. And so he checks off so many of those boxes, very similar to Darius Gray. They're different players, but they both have versatility. They both have the mindset. They both have the kind of size to athleticism ratio that you look for.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer. I know it hasn't worked out at this position, and I know South Carolina is going to be heavy in the portal on the offensive line. I'm still a firm believer long-term. You got to recruit your offensive line from the high school ranks. And, when you get a guy like Darius Gray, when you get a guy like Zion Guiles, you are making steps forward in order to be able to do just that. And so I think for Carolina, a situation here where on paper they continue to stack these blue chip guys. Obviously, they made a change at the O-line coach position for a reason. I think they got to keep finding ways to develop at that position, but to continue to stack talent, you can't just go away from recruiting blue chip high school offensive linemen because the ones you've had recently haven't worked out, right? So I think this is just another big get for South Carolina in terms of the foundation of this position moving forward.
Yeah, I've seen some of those takes, Wes. To some degree, some people are just gone right now in terms of the negativity. It's just like it's over. And I've seen, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because it's like, guys, well, there is going to be what if there's a new really good offensive line coach? Like, do we need to leave that possibility that could develop these guys and they turn into really good players? Like, these guys have a great canvas to work with. Offensive line is a developmental position, as we know. It's probably the toughest position to evaluate. And that goes to the portal too, right? Portal offensive linemen are expensive and they can be a crapshoot too, to some degree. So, you definitely want to continue bringing in this talent. What you have to do is a better job of developing it. And so that's, something that we're going to see. You certainly love having these guys in the program to have a chance to develop there.
All right, let's keep it moving again. How about Cassie Barnes? Chris, I don't know if you've put your stamp on him publicly yet, but I'm just going to out you that I think you put your stamp on him to me earlier. And
Yep.
I think Chris is a big Cassie Barnes fan. And I like the fact this is a late riser. Beamer talked today as well about getting guys who have big senior years. A lot of times some red flags may pop up. And sometimes, Chris, I feel like you even see schools, maybe there's an early commit. You watch a guy play his senior year and you're kind of going, did we take a guy too early that maybe we shouldn't have? Certainly not the case with Cassie Barnes. This is someone who has continued to climb in the recruiting rankings. Is he a certified T. Gray special? I would say probably so.
Definitely T. Gray special. You can stamp that. I mean, and I've seen Cassie in person, and he was I feel like I keep saying the same things, like the size, but he is a typical Torian Gray. You look at him, he's, 6'2". He's got long arms. He's also pretty filled out already, Wes. And in some ways, not that they're the same player, but the recruitment reminds me a little bit of Jalen Kilgore, where you look at him, look at what he does on the field. It's impressive. He's got a 4-star ranking by his name. He's got some nice offers, but he's not getting like a ton of buzz. And look at Jalen Kilgore, whether it's this offseason or next offseason, he's going to be an NFL football player, right? And he's been really good at South Carolina. Cassie Barnes is somebody that I think probably could play any position, Wes, in the secondary. I kind of like him as a nickel or safety. Plays on a really good high school team. Mentioned the size. He's got ball skills because he also plays wide receiver for his high school. And, man, you look at him move around on film, he's really twitchy. He's really sudden in his movements, which I think is really, really crucial for a defensive back, especially playing the competition level that he will face at the next level.
Let's keep it moving to Noah Clark, another 4-star defensive tackle in this class. Certainly in the trenches, I would say, is a trend for what is a smaller class, but one that Shane Beamer mentioned, hey, we're not big on quantity, but we are big on quality in this class. Noah Clark, another kid I feel like we talked about incredibly early in his high school career, to the extent, Chris, that I think we talked about Noah Clark. I kind of even forgot about, hey, is South Carolina still firmly in the mix with Noah Clark? And then, he's about to visit. He's about to take in another camp. And, as someone, if you look, the signs were all here because Noah Clark had his offer from South Carolina pretty much pinned to his Twitter account for the entirety of his recruiting process. First offer from South Carolina. He ends up committing to South Carolina and then, of course, signs with the Gamecocks today. And one thing I like about him, anybody who was just listening to us talk about Aiden Harris, this is a perfect complement, I feel like, to Aiden Harris's skill set. If you were building out your defensive line from this class, you'd go, okay, Aiden Harris is our 3 technique. He's our pass rusher. He's our guy we're going to try to get in one-on-one situations and say, go beat your man because you're quicker, you're faster. You can eat up space into the backfield. Noah Clark's going to be your guy that's going to eat up space in terms of just being the guy in the middle. Nose tackle, 1 technique, is not going to have to put on weight. It's probably going to have to reshape a little bit, but is a true, I feel like, just gap stuffer in the interior. And South Carolina really, frankly, has not had a ton of those guys out of the high school ranks in recent memory.
Yeah, his high school coach talks really highly, Wes, of him as a person. Another guy that I don't think he's going to be one of the louder voices on the team, but I think has some leadership capabilities within him too. You're right. I mean, massive guy. Cam just dropped in the chat, 350. I don't know what his updated measurements are, but certainly he's kind of in that range at 6'4", 6'5", 340, 350. I'm with you in that once he gets to the South Carolina nutrition, strength and conditioning program, I would imagine there'll be some trimming up, some reshaping, some optimizing in terms of his body composition. But, man, a lot to like here too, because this is just a big space-eating guy in the middle. And another guy, Wes, at defensive tackle, yes, but another guy from the state of North Carolina, which that's been pretty big talking point. I mean, the last three guys that we went over are all from the state of North Carolina. It's been an area, a state where South Carolina's been frankly kind of deficient in the last few years in terms of signing guys from that state. They get Noah Clark committed over the summer, kind of brought that recruitment full circle as well. South Carolina was his first offer, still had it pinned to his Twitter profile, but I think a nice piece to add to the defensive line.
Yeah, for sure. And you gotta keep stacking those guys, man. Remember, there was a little stretch there where, and they still will go portal at defensive tackle, but there was a stretch where you were going, the high school defensive tackle recruiting is going to have to take a step forward. And I think with the guys you have in this class, you really saw that. At one point, it looked like they were going to have these two guys and PJ Dean potentially in the class as well. Dean goes with Georgia, but you get two kind of foundational players in terms of guys that have high upsides that can, potentially be the future of that position. All right, so we talked about Aiden Harris, Chris. Let's turn the page now to Andrew Harris, his twin brother. You'll see he is listed as an edge by Rivals and On3, but is coming to South Carolina as a linebacker. Another kid, we've seen Clayton White kind of take this approach of, I'm going to take big, fast, physical kids and try to project them forward. Who is comfortable playing in space? Who is someone that can come in here and play linebacker within my scheme? Andrew Harris, someone that South Carolina began targeting at that position. I feel like maybe prior to the summer, but we really started to hear a little bit more about that aspect of, hey, he's a linebacker who goes to South Carolina. Other schools looking at him as an edge, maybe a bit undersized as an edge, and someone that also, I think, much like his brother, has a mean streak to him that he brings to the football field.
Yes, they're very similar, in that disposition, I think, which, Wes, we talked about a few of the guys on both sides of the ball that bring some nastiness, which I think, quite frankly, you like, especially on the defensive side of the ball, right? So Harris, interesting prospect in that he'll be making a full-time positional switch. He's played, defensive line, played with his hand in the dirt a lot of the time during his high school career, but during his senior season, played a bandit role in the 3-4. So he's getting a little bit, he got this past season a little bit more acclimated, to playing in space. But he's a guy that, for his size, runs pretty well. I think his coach was telling me he ran like in the low 11s and the 100 with, like, I don't know if it was a broken foot, some kind of foot injury. So he can run a little bit. He's got the size. I think the biggest thing here will just be, making that transition full-time to playing in space. A lot of the things that he's going to be asked to do in this scheme as a linebacker, go blitz, go get the football, go chase sideline to sideline. Those are things that he's used to, but playing man-to-man coverage, dropping into zone coverage, playing in space, those things will frankly be adjustments. But talking to his high school coach, he felt like he was well equipped to do that. So a different, obviously, type of player than his brother, a different position, but nonetheless, another guy that I think is an interesting add to this linebacker room.
All right, man, an excellent time to tell everybody about a couple of our great sponsors.
Let's tell everybody about our friend Brandon Cohn, Palmetto Golf and Belts. You can check him out, palmettogolfing.com. You can go there today. He's actually added a new product, Wes. He's got the golf club head covers. He's got the golf pouch. Of course, he's always got the custom golf gloves, towels, belts, and tees, a variety of designs, variety of colors. He's got the cross design, the palmetto tree and moon for the state of South Carolina. He's got the state of South Carolina blue. He's got garnet. So if you're a golfer, it is a must check out store, palmettogolfing.com. And of course, it's December 3rd as we do the show here. If you're looking for a Christmas gift for that golfer in your life, Palmetto Golf and Belts, palmettogolfing.com. Brandon's always running some specials. All of his gear gets rave reviews from our members on the Insiders Forum. I particularly love the needlepoint belts. They're extremely well made and more affordable than a lot of the other options you're going to find out there. So if you're looking for a new needlepoint belt for church or work or just casual, every day, go check them out. And all of your favorite golfing accessories, palmettogolfing.com.
Chris, you know what I got in my hands right now, man?
I don't. What is it?
Let me let me pull us back up here.
Yep.
See that bad boy? If you're on video right now, the Brunt Workwear boot. Our great friends at Brunt are back with us here on GC Live. And somebody, I wish I remember who it was, one of our loyal listeners, if you're here today, hit the chat. One of them told us, hey, I heard about Brunt on the show. I did what you guys said. I bought some boots from Brunt, and I am incredibly happy with my purchase. So whichever nameless listener that was, shout out to you. And you don't have to listen to us. Listen to them and head on over to bruntworkwear.com/GC and use the code GC. You're going to get $10 off your first purchase there at Brunt. The excellent thing about these boots, man, is that they're incredibly comfortable from the absolute moment that you get them. So a lot of times you have that break-in period. A lot of times you have that period where your boots just do not feel comfortable. You don't have that with Brunt. So they're durable but comfortable. Join over 500,000 other customers and getting Brunt. And try the boots on the job. Their products have free shipping as well. So shout out to our friends at Brunt. Excited to have them back here on the podcast. Check them out at bruntworkwear.com/GC. And we will continue to tell you about some of their awesome products throughout the next couple of months here on GC Live. All right, Chris, who do we want to talk about next? How about our guy? This is a kid I like, man. Just a good kid, too. I feel like we've said that a lot. How about our guy, KJ Johnson from Alabama? We saw South Carolina get into the state of Alabama a little bit in this class, and another, certainly a T. Gray special is KJ Johnson.
Yeah, a guy that is a really good basketball player as well for his high school. Inexperienced overall from a football standpoint. I think this was just his second year of high school football, Wes. But someone, again, has some length, 6'1", 170. I think he'll be able to add some weight to that frame. He can run. His high school coach told me he's got some, freaky athletic traits within there. And someone that's still refining his craft as a defensive back. South Carolina actually thinks that he can play cornerback at the next level. I think he's versatile enough to play other places, but they want to give him a look at cornerback. And I think he's got the attributes to do it. Also plays wide receiver. I think does some return stuff for his high school team as well. From a technical standpoint, he's probably not going to be the most advanced guy walking into the class because of that lack of experience that I mentioned. But what he does have is some intriguing physical tools, Wes, ball skills, the length, the ability to run. So interested to see how KJ Johnson develops when he gets to Columbia.
Well, and I think Torian Gray, I actually asked Torian about the T. Gray special and if he knew what that meant, and if he was on to us that anybody who is 6'2" and runs a 4.5 and has athleticism and upside and is a little bit raw is a T. Gray special. He didn't really know what the heck I was talking about, but basically he's like, yeah, if they have those traits, we'll teach them the rest, right? And we have seen South Carolina have success with that route. You got a comp here? I mean, is there some Judge Collier here? Maybe, I don't know, man. Like, there's definitely length, there's definitely athleticism, and definitely someone that if these guys that have those traits listen to Torian Gray and put in the work, typically they actually pan out more times than they don't.
Yeah, he's certainly got the development track record. And Wes, he's done it with a variety of guys. If you look back at he's recruited, Kendall Fuller, big time recruit. You think about South Carolina, a guy that they inherited, and Cam Smith was a big time recruit. Like, he's got some of those, but he's also got, a Darius Rush, who was a late bloomer, a Jalen Foster, who went from a former walk-on to an All-American in the first season under Shane Beamer and others, right? And there's other guys on the way. Could KJ Johnson be one of those guys that you look back and say, man, that, 3-star kid didn't have a who's who offer list, someone that they seem to like and believe in, and you look at the physical traits and you can see it, I think.
So, quick story on our next guy, Kaden Ramsey. A little bit of a later addition to the class, committed, September 8th. We talked about a T. Gray special a second ago. This is your Charles Power special of the class. Long time recruiting analyst, has worked his way up, is now the national recruiting analyst and head of recruiting for On3 and Rivals. And when Charles says something, people listen, or they should listen when it comes to evaluations. And you can see it right here, man. The number 68 tight end in the country, according to the recruiting industry, and the number 19 tight end in the country, according to Charles Power and the team here at Rivals and On3. So Rivals has him as a 4-star kid. That's a lot of it based on upside. You're talking about coming from a smaller school, talking about somebody that's played a variety of positions, is more of a wide receiver safety in high school, but will play tight end at South Carolina. I was about to say under Sean Elliott, we'll see what that looks like as South Carolina moves their coaching staff around on offense. Will Elliott be the tight ends coach? Will he be the O-line coach? How will all that play out? We shall see. But Chris, quick story there. I remember being at camp this summer, and from well across the indoor practice facility, I see Sean Elliott walking, and I see this kid that from like 100 yards away, I'm going, who is he with? Because he looked so physically impressive, 6'5", big frame, just some guys have the look, right? And this guy had the look, and to the extent that I was sitting there going, wait, is that 4-star kid that was supposed to maybe be here today? Is that blue chip guy? And then we were told, no, that's Kaden Ramsey. And it's like, wait, Kaden Ramsey, who is that? And remembered, okay, you had written about him as somebody South Carolina might look into months earlier. I had no idea Kaden Ramsey looked the way Kaden Ramsey looks. And I think when Charles Power said, okay, looks like that, he runs, I think, in the 4.5s or so. And he had, 14 interceptions as a junior. You go, all right, there are some things to really like about this guy if he can make the SEC transition.
Yeah, and he's a guy that plays with emotion, Wes. He's got a high, I think, care factor. During that workout with Sean Elliott that he puts guys through the ringer in terms of workouts and kind of stamped him as a guy where he really liked what he saw. But just such an intriguing player. Yes, he plays smaller school ball for a really good high school team, really good high school coach, and Sean Wright at Cross. But, man, you just look at this guy on film, he really sticks out. He would stick out if he was playing 5A ball, right? If he was out there playing against Dutch Fork every single week. From a physical standpoint, he would stand out because of that frame. You're right. He's been used mostly as kind of a true wide receiver. Some schools actually offered him as a wide receiver, Wes. Some schools gave him the choice of like, hey, maybe you could come in here and play defense for us, because you're right, 14 interceptions as a junior. I think he added 7 to that. So 21 interceptions from the past 2 seasons as a junior and a senior. He's got those natural pass catching, route running skills from being a receiver, yet he has the frame to transition to tight end. So obviously, Wes, I think his biggest, hurdle or biggest development point will be, blocking in the box, blocking in space, putting on some more weight. Those things are obvious, but just from an upside standpoint, in terms of, his pass catching ability, you got to like what you see and the potential for Kaden Ramsey.
Dude, I'm hesitant to even say this. You know who he looks like on film? And granted, playing at a smaller level, he actually he moves a little bit like Nicky Mawari did in high school. Like just that long frame at safety, but still moving around effortlessly. Nick played some wide receiver in high school too. I mean, even watching Kaden run some of these routes, there was a comeback route that came across there a moment ago where he's just breaking off the route. Like a lot of these bigger long stride guys can't really break off routes like that. Yeah. Like you can easily see why Charles was willing to put a 4-star stamp on this kid, even though he just was not that highly recruited at all, frankly. And I like you brought up the care factor too. One thing that was brought up to me earlier, man, this offseason or heading into this offseason was that, South Carolina was maybe going to have some difficult conversations with some guys who are currently on the roster about, hey, do you love football or not? And I think in today's era, in portal era, in the NIL era, there are still guys that love football. It's not all about money.
Yep.
But I think that's got to be part of your evaluation process too.
It absolutely does. Yeah, and I don't like when people say it's all about money now. I mean, has it become a lot about money? Oh, absolutely. And even there are a lot of high level guys in college football, Wes, who are very highly paid, but they have a huge care factor, right? So it's still at the end of the day about finding those right kind of guys where even if they're getting compensated, which most of them are nowadays in some form or fashion, some more than others, you still got to make sure that they're about ball. And so I think there are a lot of guys in this class like that. Kaden Ramsey, I think, is one of them.
Yeah, good kids throughout the class, man. Let's move on now to Anthony Baxter, one of the very, very early commitments to this class. And I'll say this about Baxter, and I think this is about as good of a compliment as you can give somebody, man, especially when they're already committed, when they already have their offer, when they already have, their scholarship taken care of. I'm not sure if we saw a guy in camp for 2024 summer to 2025 summer that improved more than Anthony Baxter. The kid came out, he worked, he was already committed, he was challenging 4-star defensive linemen. If he got beat, he was saying, no, I want another rep. He was willing to kind of stand out and be a guy who knew he was committed to South Carolina, and other guys are coming after him because of that. And I respect that a lot. I think he is a developmental guy in terms of making that step up to the SEC. Like, I don't think it's going to be immediate if we're just being completely honest. But I like guys that improve. I like guys that are willing to put in the work. And I like the fact that he was willing to go out there, and even if he got beat, he said, I want another rep. I want another shot at you. And had some big wins in that camp this past season against some big-time defensive linemen.
Yeah, Squirt, Wes. That's the nickname. So, Anthony Squirt Baxter. Great
You like
name.
that one, don't you?
That cracks me up, man. I don't know. We got to get the origin story from that. But you're right. I mean, I had the same thought. Like, it was a substantial improvement. I think, like, from a physical standpoint, like, I think he had improved his body composition from last time we saw him in camp or the first time we saw him to this past summer. And then it wasn't a day where he was going up against a bunch of Chris and Wes's. There are those days in camp. He had some dudes out there. I think Valdon Sone was out there that day, who is an absolute monster who signed, sorry guys, with Georgia. But they had some battles, right? And Baxter's going right back for more. Definitely an interior guy all the way, I think. But, you kind of saw a spark there, that I think he liked. And I think he'd improved substantially just in that year from one camp to another.
All right, as we close this out, we're going to tell you about SQL Patterson from Indian Land High School. Chris, a reclassification into this class for the Gamecocks. Someone that early on, man, you're talking about. I mean, there was a who's who offer list that was sort of starting to formulate with SQL. Ended up being an incredibly low-key recruitment here. And let's see, not all guys have senior film. He does have senior film. I'm going to play this. I have not watched it yet, but we put the Chris stamp on a couple of guys earlier. I'm going to put my stamp on SQL Patterson. For one, I love evaluating wide receivers anyway. I saw him at that kind of joint practice they did in Rock Hill. It had 4 or 5, 6 of the high schools from the area. Give me wide receivers that make things look effortless. Give me wide receivers that pluck the football out of the air and don't catch the ball at their body. And give me slot receivers that can effortlessly go play cornerback too. And SQL Patterson, you're about to see that on film right now. He checks all those boxes. A very sudden athlete, not the biggest, but he has ball skills of a much bigger player. Guys with much bigger frames than him. He plays bigger than he is. So I am a massive SQL Patterson fan. And also some of the things I've heard, man, I won't go into it, but just about kind of his story and who he is as a kid is someone that I'm going to be pulling for. Regardless of if it was South Carolina or anywhere else, I would be pulling for this kid. But just very impressed with SQL on and off the field. I think he's an impact guy eventually for South Carolina and maybe an early impact guy.
Well, Weston, I'll give another one from this past season. SQL Patterson, his Indian Land team, is going to the state championship game. They beat my alma mater, TL Hanna, by coming back, scoring 14 unanswered points in the final 5 minutes. And in that second half, he took over. He scored 3 touchdowns on offense. He sealed the game with an interception. He was playing receiver, obviously, as usual, and DB, plays both sides of the ball. But he actually stepped in when their quarterback, I think, was injured, had to be out of the game. I think he suffered an injury. SQL Patterson comes in at quarterback, throws the 90-yard go-ahead touchdown, and then ices the game with a pick. So he's got kind of that gamer, mentality to him. And if you go look at his film, man, this is one of those guys where in years past, I'd be sitting there going, ooh, I kind of like this guy as a corner, and I think he could play it. But actually, I want to keep SQL Patterson at wide receiver. But I think he's just got that kind of football player look to him. And certainly you look at the film, he makes a lot of plays.
Have you changed, Chris? Are you not moving everybody to corner now? Or
not moving everybody to corner anymore? No. I think I have had a shift. I've noticed that about myself. Try to reflect a little bit.
So wait, are you, after seeing him in person, are you or seeing what he did to TL Hanna, are you stamping him as well? Is this a double stamp?
Yeah, I think we could. Yeah, we can double stamp him. That was a heck of a performance, no doubt.
Yeah, gotta love gamers, man. And clearly, it seems like he is one of those. Checks a bunch of those boxes, and again, was a just very low key recruitment, which you don't always see. I don't think you always see that anymore for talents as good as SQL Patterson. So looking forward to watching him in the garnet and black. And if I am correct, we've got one more guy to talk about. We won't talk about anybody that's kind of up in the air right now, but Tristan Lewis has not officially been announced, but will sign with his teammates, I guess, probably tomorrow. And no concerns here. Listed as an athlete on Rivals, plays quarterback. I mean, dude, you want to talk about a gamer like we were just talking about. Tristan Lewis is a gamer as well and is someone that will try to make that South Carolina transition from quarterback to DB like we saw, I guess, with DQ Smith would be one of the most recent examples. But I don't know if anybody maybe raised their stock more in the last couple of seasons than this kid, just in terms of school starting to get an idea of what he is all about as a just physical athlete, very, very well put together. I mean, can do some things. He wasn't really recruited at all by South Carolina at the quarterback position, but is a heck of a high school quarterback. And from what I've heard, man, a heck of a pitcher as well. Throws over 90 miles an hour, just is a elite athlete.
I'll give something, Wes, and I like giving this perspective because it's not mine, right? And it's not yours. Like, we can come on here and give our opinions of guys, and maybe we're right, maybe we're wrong. Maybe people say that sounds good. Maybe people roll their eyes. I'll give the perspective of his coach, Chris Liner at Greenwood, and he's the head coach there now. He's done a great job. Formerly in the older days, an assistant at Greenwood, and just some of the guys that he mentioned to me at DB. Well, Armani Edwards, not a DB, but he mentioned to me Josh Norman, South Carolina great DJ Swearinger, mentioned Armani Edwards. Liner was around those guys when he was at the Greenwood program years ago. And he said, look, I know what like that kind of guy looks like. He said Tristan Lewis has that kind of ability. He actually said he may have more raw ability than they did, and he knows what he's saying with that. He's like, hey, that's saying something. Those guys were all really good, but he thinks he has NFL potential. Really tough, really physical. He's the kind of kid that playing quarterback, Wes. He does not like to slide, you know. He likes to hit guys. He has the highest power clean on the team. That was another, I mean, just some great quotes that Chris Liner gave me. He's like, he does things in the weight room that just don't make sense for a kid like his size. And of course, there'll be a transition, you know, when you're moving this guy full time to defensive back, but he's got the size, the physical tools, and the football IQ, Wes, I think, to be really, really good. Will it take some development? Absolutely. But I think he's got the goods mentally and physically.
Didn't one of his clips go kind of viral for him just trucking a guy this year?
Oh, yeah. He hit the truck stick on somebody. Yeah.
And another one, I hate to go back to this man, but another one, when you first see him in person, like just a big kid. He's just big. He just is. And this one it was a little bit of a unique recruitment as well. We saw him at camp when he was there for 7-on-7 playing quarterback. And remember, we got a little bit of a nudge like, hey, watch that Greenwood quarterback a little bit.
Yeah.
And it ended up being kind of I don't want to say a full circle. That's not the way to say it correctly. It just ended up being something that was simmering a little bit underneath the surface and ended up turning into something. South Carolina was kind of recruiting some other guys, keeping an eye on what was going to happen with them, but it worked out to where, Tristan ended up getting the offer, committed, and it's going to be fascinating to see where some of these in-state guys end up in terms of their production at South Carolina, because you do have some of these just classic, under the radar a little bit, state of South Carolina, Palmetto State, in-state guys. And I think there's some talent with all these kids. So we'll be very, very curious to see where it ends up. Again, as we close this out, man, a class that is not big on overall numbers, but is big on average star rating, if you care about those things, is big on just, I would say, quality over quantity. That's what stands out to me, dude. It would be quality over quantity, and then probably the focus on the trenches when you look at the O-line position, when you look particularly on the interior, the defensive line in this class. We'll see if that involves an edge in Julian Phillips as well. Who knows? But that's the thing that maybe just catches my eye the most about just the trends with this class.
Yeah, Beamer was asked at his press conference, what'll be the portal priorities, and he said offensive line, defensive tackle. Those are the biggest ones. And at the same time, Wes, you want to make sure that you're recruiting some guys that you can bring in to develop for the future too. You can't be overly reliant at all times to, hey, we got a gap, we got to plug it with the transfer portal, right? You'd love to bring guys in your program, develop them into experienced veteran players that have been in your program for a while, and then add some pieces from the portal, whether it's depth, whether it's a starter, even a superstar. You want to be able to add those guys in. They're a little short on numbers, and of course they're trying to get better there. So there's certainly some strong acquisitions. There's some strong acquisitions at other spots too. We just went through, all those guys, but certainly in the trenches, that's kind of a highlight, I think, as well.
Will there be a quarterback in the class? We will find out hopefully relatively soon, and you will learn about it when we learn about it there on Gamecock Central. So, all right, y'all, I think that's going to do it for today's show. Appreciate y'all bearing with us. We're a little light on sleep, so hopefully everything we said actually made some sense. If it didn't, I guess apologies. But thank you for hanging with us throughout this recruiting cycle, throughout this football season. And we're going to keep doing shows. Obviously, we'll let you know when we're going to hop on. And offensive coordinator search and potentially an O-line search, kind of following that. We'll see if those two things are kind of, I guess, married together, Chris. But hopefully, very, very soon, we'll be able to hop on here and talk about that and talk about what that means for South Carolina. So that's kind of the next step for the Gamecocks. And then portal talk down the road. So even though regular season is over, even though signing class pretty much locked in, we'll see what happens with these final couple of guys. We will still be right here with you on Gamecock Central and, of course, here on GC Live as well. So for Chris, I am Wes. Thanks again. Y'all have a phenomenal day, and we will be back on here very, very soon